Hello guys, how are you? This is Mr. Yahya. I hope you're doing great. I missed you so much. Today we're going to speak about your novel, Robinson Crusoe. But before we start, I would like to remind you that this story is a fictional story. It's not real. It's based on a real story of the adventurer Alexander Selkirk, who was stranded on an island for 4 years. The writer of the story is Daniel Defoe, who was born around the same period of Skirk's adventure, and he used the main character, Robinson Crusoe, as a narrator. So let's start. Hello, guys. As we mentioned before, the narrator of the story is the main character, Robinson Crusoe. The story starts with Robinson sitting and writing his diary, showing us that he is the third of three brothers, or the youngest of three brothers, and both of his brothers are not home anymore. As the youngest son, his father wanted him to study law, and Robinson wanted to go to the sea. His father finds out and strongly opposes the idea. After strong discussion between Robinson and his father, Robinson agreed to follow his father's instructions. He promised him to forget about his dream. He promised him to forget about the sea and study law. But shortly after, when his friend invited him to go to London by sea, he couldn't resist his desire. He couldn't resist his temptation to go to the sea and have his own adventure. That's why he forgot and broke his promise to his father. When they were in the sea, a very strong storm had developed. It was so bad, and Crusoe felt so afraid, so he started to pray for his life. When the ship landed and every one of the crew was safe and sound, Robinson considered that a sign, a sign that he might get punished because he broke his father's promise. So he decided to stay with his friend in London and promised him not to go to the sea again. However, when the captain that he met in London invited him for another voyage, a merchant voyage, a voyage for trade, to sell and buy things, he broke his second promise again and go with him and pursued what he always dreamed to do. But this time, he was a little bit successful. He made a quite amount of money. He took part of it to himself and gave the rest to a widow he trusts so she can save the money. After the success he had in the first trip, Robinson decided to have another one, hoping to achieve more success and collect more money. But this time, the ship was captured by pirates, who took over the ship and enslaved Robinson. Robinson served the pirates among other slaves, and he was assigned to the fishing task. Apparently, he was naturally skilled in this task. And one day, he was sent to another fishing trip with other two slaves, Jerry and Ismail. Robinson never trusted Ismail. He always see him as a greedy person. So when they were far enough from the pirate ship, he pushed him in the sea and forced him to swim back, threatening him with a gun. At the same time, he convinced Jerry to escape with him using the fishing boat, and Jerry agreed. They had spent some time on the island planning to leave as soon as they could when they saw a European ship in distance. The ship picked them, and the Portuguese captain of the ship offered to take them to Brazil. Robinson had sold the captain, the boat, and Jerry as a slave. In return, after 22 days, with the money he took from the captain, he bought a piece of land and he decided to plant it tobacco. He made a quite good amount of money, and he discovered that he needs more men to work with him in planting tobacco. So when he asked his Brazilian friend where he could get men to work for him, his friend advised him that instead of getting men and give them money, he can use slaves. That's why Robinson decided to go to Guinea to bring slaves to work for him planting tobacco. Shortly after he set off his journey to Guinea, a strong storm hit the ship, and Robinson found himself shipwrecked, lonely, on an island without any one of his crew. He prayed he prayed to the god for his safety, and he spent his first night under a tree beside a stream of water that he can drink from. In the very next morning, he swam back to the ship, so hoping to find something that he can use. He found food, clothes, a lot of things, and three animals: a parrot, a cat, and a dog. And he considered them the friends that will accompany him on the island. Shortly after, he built a raft to help him to go back and forth to the ship, and he brought all what he needed from the ship. After spending some time on the island, Robinson get accustomed to his new life. He even started to build houses to live in with his friends, the animals, and he tamed his first goat. He planted some crops to find food in the future. He felt for a moment that he owned the island. After some time, Robinson faced some situations that was so harmful and so terrifying. Started with an earthquake that nearly killed him, followed by a hurricane which lasted for a week, damaged everything he had built, and leave him seriously ill with a fever and a headache. He couldn't even drink some water. He was literally dying of thirst. And that's when he prayed for God for to save his life. That was his first serious prayer. After he felt little bit better than before, he decided to read of the Bible again. And he was conceived and convinced that he should do something better with his life. After a while, Robinson felt good and he learned to do a lot of things. He learned to plant properly and to avoid all the mistakes he have done before. He had learned to make kind of furniture, wicker baskets, imitating the basket that he got from the ship. So he started to manage his life better after that. He taught Friday some English words, and he loved him as a friend. Also, Friday loved Robinson and helped him throughout his time on the island. When they found another incident of the cannibals, because they periodically visit the island. But this time, the cannibals has some prisoners. One of them was European, the other was just savages as Friday. They had used their weapons to set them free, and eventually, one of the prisoners was Friday's father. One day, Friday came running to Crusoe with news that a boat was approaching the island. Crusoe used his son's spyglasses to discover that is an English boat, and three men of the boat was tied as prisoners. He thought that they would be given to cannibals first, but when he approached them, he discovered that one of them is the captain of the ship, and the other crew or the other sailors mutinied against him. So Crusoe offered him to help and free him. In exchange, he should be offered a journey, or he should be taken to England with Friday. Robinson was able to defeat the mutineers, and he took over the ship, and he gave them an offer to stay on the island, utilizing all what he had done, instead of taking them back as prisoner to England and get punished for being traitors. So they accept his offer and they spend their time, or they decided to spend their time on the island. Eventually, he went back to England with few possessions from the island and the money he got, and after 28 years, he returned back to his home. The end.